Hi, friends. I'm Kat, and I wanted to talk quickly about a problem that I've been having with the construction of bottom up garments. I had a request from Mars at Hey Brownberry to share a little bit more about what my struggle is and why. She's in the midst of doing a bottom up design, and I thought rather than try to type it all out with my thumbs, I would just talk about it and share it this way because, maybe she's not the only one who has this question, and I can be of use to people. So, I have two examples with me of the three sweaters, and so obviously I'm no expert. I've only done it a couple of times, and somehow I end up on the struggle bus every time. And both this As If Tea by Shea Johnson and my Weekender sweater by Andrea Mowry ended up in kind of a long time out. And the third sweater that I made was a gift for my mom, and I had to reknit it for her 5 times before she was satisfied with the results. And then she lost a bunch of weight and asked me to change it again so that my dad could wear it. It's a bubblegum pink sweater. But he does. He wears it and he loves it because it's very soft. Anyway, so what is my problem? Mainly, it is that unlike with the top down sweater, it is hard to try things on as you go along. And even if you do try things on as you go along, um, it's hard to gauge whether or not you're in the right place because, for example, with this one, the front and the back are knit flat and then seamed back together again. And so I would end up sort of pinching two hanging bits of live stitches together, trying to figure out if it was at the right spot. And of course, the mohair is starting to stretch out. So look how much bra I'm showing now, where before it looked like it would be just perfect. Um, so yeah, it was the struggle of knowing when I was done, and I ended up like standing in the mirror trying to hang a measuring tape from the top of my shoulder where I thought I wanted the seam to hit to the place on my body where I wanted this like point of the breast cup to end, because I had it knit past that and I was just into the rows of straight mohair, and because it's a short sweater in the back, this is different. So I needed these two lengths. I had to figure out those two lengths and they were different numbers. So it was tricky to know. Oh, I dropped it. Um, to know how much length to give myself so that it would hit where I wanted it to hit. I mean, the pattern is well written, but it's a little sparse on some of those details in terms of you have to decide for yourself. Every body shape is different, and then there's the question of like, did I put this down for so long. When I picked it up again, I don't think I had the right number of stitches anymore, or I lost some, or accidentally like knit two together because things had fallen off the needles and got put back on. And because it was mohair, I mistook 2 stitches for one, so I had to sort of fudge the 3 needle bind off and then picking this up in the round and then 3 needle bind off all the way across so that it would all match up. And see, like, a little bit of struggle bus here. It worked out really well on this one, but this is like the third in my long line. The sweater for my mom actually came first, and that one, it was tricky because she did not want a boat neck, and that with bottom up construction, the boat neck really lends itself very easily to finishing off the shoulders. Um, and so I ended up doing sort of short rows to bring the edges in together so that it stopped being boat neck and it could be a crew neck. And then later the adjustment she wanted made was that now it's a turtleneck. And the Weekender by Andrea Mowry is a boat neck. And that time, my problem with the bottom up construction was in following the pattern, the armholes were not big enough, and I had to rip. I had to rip back because I tried to have a different color here at the very top because I thought it would be really soft, but it didn't. It didn't work, and I've spoken about that in previous episodes. But basically I tried to switch yarns at the 11th hour of this sweater, and it didn't look right anyway. So I pulled it out. But then in picking up with the other yarn before I'd even gotten that far, I didn't have enough space at the sleeves. So that part is kind of going along with the conversation we've been having in the Great Stash Down about the upper arm circumference. It's not the same for everybody. Like I don't really have guns. I got a little bit of that thing. Yeah, my arms are not a size that necessarily goes with the rest of my body, and my tatas have never been particularly large, so like picking a size sometimes can be tricky in that regard. And I've heard so many different suggestions from different people over the years about like don't use bust size, use like the back, like shoulder to shoulder measurement, and sometimes that's not really that clear, so that could be something that you could use in your design process. Making sure that you have extensive measurements of all of the different ways that people might measure a sweater, like across the shoulders is a good one, because like I'm somebody with broader shoulders and a smaller bust, so maybe a stereotypically masculine sweater pattern would actually fit my body better. I have a long torso and short legs, so garments are interesting for me generally. But in terms of the other part is just the binding off, when you get to the top and it's time to bind off, like matching all of this stuff up, coming up with an easy way. I usually end up doing a lot of counting and recounting and counting a fourth time. You know what I mean? Where I'm trying to put stitch markers along in the count so that everything matches up. And somehow I usually end up with an extra stitch somewhere, and I have to, add or subtract or whatever, like do knit 3 together at the very end or something. Like it just, no matter how many times, this is why I'm terrified of sewing with fabric or doing a lot of woodworking, because that whole measure twice, cut once thing, I'd be measuring like 15 times and still mess it up. It feels like I don't. Anyway, yeah. So those are the things that I really struggle with the bottom up construction, is just knowing when to stop so that the garment will do what I want it to do in terms of how it fits me, where things fall, and I, unlike you, dear Mars, am a very impatient maker. So it gets to a point sometimes where I just don't care anymore and I want to finish. And that overtakes my common sense about finishing things as they should be done. And this one was sort of an example of that. Sometimes that's a reason why I have to put things on timeout, is that I have to wait until that impatience has passed. And when I can come back to it with more of my sanity in play, then I finish things in a way where I like them and I wear them more often. And I think for both of these garments that was the case. And what else could I say about it? I don't know. It's just tricky, I think, also because it's harder to gauge. It's sort of like, if you're doing your hair for a long time and holding your arms up in the air, after a while it makes you tired. The same sort of like awkward finagling happens when you're trying to hold the garment up here. If you're putting something on and it's top down, then you just put it on and it sits there and it's held up by your shoulders. And so now you can look down and do things with your hands, and your arms are in a comfortable position, and you can like think through what you want to do, and is it long enough, and how does it look with pants? And it's not the same when you're holding it up, like, because as soon as you take your focus off where your hands are, they could move, and now all of a sudden you've made the garment longer at the bottom, and it looks like it's where you want it to be and it's not, or you actually have to do an inch more in the pattern, and when you go to seam it all up, it's wrong because one side's too long or the other side's too short, or you know what I mean? Like, somehow that seems to be part of my problem. And maybe it's just that I'm imprecise in my making, and you are very thoughtful. So I don't know. I hope that sort of answers your question. I have not given up entirely on bottom up construction. I just know that it's something that I have to like gird my loins for a little bit more because I have more trouble with it. And I'm trying to be more intentional in picking things that I know that I will wear and picking colors that I know that I will wear and using the things that I have, which is why we are hanging out on the Great Stash Down together. Okay, bye.